Hello, welcome to the Django Cross World of Warcraft tutorial. In previous episode, we created our character model and make it available in our Django admin. So now I'm at that code base from last episode, and in this one, we'll start building a client to talk to Blizzard's API and get the gears information for our characters. So let's get into it. First thing first, if we want to use Blizzard's API, we'll need to know how. And fortunately, Blizzard has this develop.battle.net page showing you exactly how and what the APIs they have. You do need to register to be able to access this page. And once you do, there are a couple things I want to show you. First thing is, if you click that Get Started Now, it tells you the most important things to use their APIs. One is you can find their portal, and it's this page where it shows all the APIs available, and this will be the one we'll be using. And the other thing is about OAuth. So you do need to use OAuth flow to get yourself authenticated before you can make any calls to get the data. So if you go to that page, it is very detailed in many different ways. But in our case, we are interested in using this OAuth client credentials flow. So you can see it tells you exactly needs to be done. You need to send a request to this URL with grant type and client ID and secret, and you are going to get back a JSON with the access token in it. So essentially, we need to make a request first, get the access token, and then we can make the other followed up requests. So now, with that information, let's start writing some code. So we're going to need our Blizzard client folder, and it's a Python module. So init.py file, and we need our very client.py file. So let's call it Blizzard client, and we know that we need the client ID and secret. So let's do that in init, and we set client ID equals assuming we're going to read that from Django configuration. So it will be settings.blizzard client ID and self.it will be settings.blizzard client secret. And let's import settings. There we go. So now we're getting it from settings, but we don't actually have it in the settings. So let's hook things up. Blizzard API. So Blizzard client ID equals, do we have OS? Yeah. s.env.get. Yeah, that would be the same value. Blizzard client secret will be similar. And let me just double check the names and the values. Blizzard client ID. There you go. Cool. And now the final thing is, how do we set this from our environment variable? Obviously, we don't want to put it here because it's sensitive information, and this will get committed to Git. So that's why we created this creds file first, so that we can put information like this into this file. Because this is not tracked by Git, and it only exists on your local server or your production server. So now we need to get these two values from Blizzard's API. So this is where you get the two values. You want to create a client, and you can see I already did mine. And in terms of what to put there, you need the name. You don't need the redirect URLs. You can check this. You don't need a service URL as well. And this is just for serving. And here's your client ID. We're going to grab that. And I'm going to show the secret to you guys, because by the time you see this video, this client is going to be deleted by myself anyway. So don't try to use it. Or you can try, but you will fail. All right. So now I believe we have everything we need to make a real request. But before we write any function, we need a library to help us making common HTTP requests. So we're going to use the very famous Python package requests. And by the time I'm writing this, the latest version is this. So we have that. And now we can import requests. Okay. So now we can write our function to send requests to Blizzard's API. I believe we only need get, so we'll keep it simple and only care about the get function. So essentially, whatever request we want to make, we need to get access token first, and then we make the request. So first step is get the access token. And from this documentation, it already tells us that we need to make a request to this URL and with those parameters. So it'll be access token equals post, and params will be grunt type equals credentials. So that, and so that's a simple auth in HTTP. So that means we'll just do a auth equals self.client ID self.client secret. And it tells us that it's a JSON being returned and we want the access token. So we'll just chain a .json after that and do a get access token. And let me just format it real quick. Slightly better. And now we have the access token, and all we need to do is forward that to requests.get. So first thing is the other arguments that's sent to this function. And this will be a jot, so we'll do headers equals bearer. Sorry, the header is authorization. It will be a bearer header that says token. All right, let's try it out. So we'll do document compose build, and we'll exec into the Django container. All right. So in this case, we'll be using the Django shell tool. If you're not familiar, you know, like when you're in a terminal, you can start a Python shell, right? So you can do like, you know, all the Python code basically. But in our case, we wanted to use more stuff that's related to Django. Like if we wanted to use a model, we want the model to actually be connected to the database. Or in this client case, we wanted to know like what a Django.conf is, how to import settings from it, etc. So Django provided this tool called Django shell. So you can start from manage.py shell. It's really not that different from a typical Python shell. But when you import models, it will just work. And all the Django features will just keep working because it's configured to connect to your Django configurations. So in our case, we want from Django from.Django client Blizzard client and all right. So now we have the client. Let's see what API we want to use. So this will be the URL we want to use. C.get, s, and for our character, it's on EU, so it'll be eu.api.blizzard.com. The URL is profile wow character, and then realm and character name. So it'll be Anthony E. And I think we need a namespace profile US. So that'll be a parameter. Namespace profile, except in our case it's EU. So we'll do that. And we got a response back. All right, so let me do response, close that, and JSON. Cool. So you can see the character information is back. It has all the like female, name, all different languages for attributes like faction and all that stuff. So this is clearly working, and I believe our client is ready. So now let's jump onto the model so we can take advantage of that new client. So the first thing is that we want a new field called equipment checksum. So it will be a char field equals, and this one I really don't know how long it could be, so let me just be safe and give it a really large number. And again, this will be a time we need a new migration. So we'll do make migrations, Django as well. Oh, that reminds me. So this field, we need it to be null. So we'll do null equals true, blank equals true. And then let's try again. Cool. And we're gonna apply it. Okay, so now we have this new field. We just need to find the value to put it in. So let's call it get equipment checksum. So in our previous experiment, we've already almost figured out what needs to be sent. So this will be the information we care about. All right, I don't think I can copy that, so I'm just going to say JSON equals, oh, we don't have a client yet, so I'm going to import and we're going to create it here. All right, cool. So now we got the client. We'll do client.get. We'll assemble this string starting from HTTPS, and this will be the server or region. So it will be self.region.lower.api.user, and it's called profile wow character, and then this will be the rem, and this will be the character name. Okay, and similarly, we're just going to add lower to all of them. And once again, we need the rams, namespace, and this will be an assembled string again, profile self.region.low. Okay, so now we are getting this back as a JSON. So we'll just add a JSON here, and let's see what it can do. So once again, we'll use Django shell. We'll include, actually this case will be simpler. We'll just from models import character. We'll get our first one, and we'll do get equipment checksum. Because we didn't return anything. All right. All right, cool. So we have the JSON, and let's see what we have. So let's just call it J. Let's see what keys it has. So we care about equipment, obviously, and active spec maybe, because we only care about the DPS. So we want to check if the spec is a DPS spec. So let's do J active spec and equipment. So it looks like we need to call a couple other APIs to get more information we need. So one of the URL we are interested in is active spec URL, which is in active spec key href. And the other one, equipment URL, will be in equipment href. Okay. All right, so now we know we need to call out to these two new URLs, but we basically need to apply this same thing to figure out what exactly are there and how to parse them out. So this is where I used Insomnia, which is a RESTful client to help you do API development. So for example, in this specification URL, this is what you're getting back. And you can see that there is a role type field that's saying damage, and that's what we're looking for. We want to know if this role or spec is a damage dealer. And similarly for the equipment, I'm getting the equipment back like this. So this one looks very interesting to us. It is a list of items, and we can see there is this ID for each item, and there's a socket. So you essentially have a ID and socket pair for each item, and you have 15 of them. So basically, we just want to extract those information out, put them together at a really long string, and that's going to be our checksum. First thing is we want to get the JSON from active spec URL. So get and for the equipment, we'll do similar. And for the role, as we just saw, it's under role type, and we're looking for the word damage. And for the equipment checksum, we know it's under equipment JSON equipped items, but we want to do some processing on that. So it's a list of items. We want the slot, we want the ID, and we want to put them together. So it's going to be a string concatenating. So X will be each item. Now we need the slot first. And we also need the item ID. So that'll be item ID. So this gives us a slot and ID pair for each item. But this doesn't guarantee the uniqueness of this entire string because the order matters. So we want to sort this list so that its order is deterministic. And now the last thing we want to do is we just add another join to put the entire list into a giant string. And that's going to be our equipment checksum. All right, so now let's say print, let's return role and equipment checksum and see what happens. All right, so we're gonna from Django from down Django class now normalize for character. Get equipment checksum. Cool. So you can see now that we know it's a damage spec and it's ordered list of items with the ID and the slot. So now if there's any changes in the ID, we'll know. Cool. So now we know we're getting the right information. Let's just do one more thing. So for this function, if the role is damage, we return this new equipment checksum. And otherwise, we just return that equipment checksum. Essentially, we're just going to ignore it if it's not a DPS spec. And that's going to do for this episode. Hopefully, this episode gets you to know what a typical API client looks like, what are the information you're looking for when you're looking at the API documentation, and how to kind of parse the output of an API response, how to get the information you care about. I hope you had fun. See you in the next one.